Hi, my name is Victor Unwoke, and in this walkthrough, I will show you how to use PowerShell to create a new resource group, two virtual networks, each with a subnet, deploy two Windows virtual machines per virtual network, and then create virtual network pairing between them. Let's get started. First, I'll open my PowerShell and I'll log into my account, my Azure account, and set the right subscription, which I've already done before starting this walkthrough. Now we are going to create a new resource group where everything will live. To create a new resource group, we are using the new AZ resource group commandlet to create our resource group. We have successfully created the resource group by our location in East US. Next, we will create two virtual networks, each with its own subnet. And to create this virtual network, we are using the new AZ virtual network commandlet. What we just did, we created a variables for our VNets, which contains our name of the virtual networks, the name of the resource group, location, and our address prefix. Then we created a variables for our virtual networks, which contains new AZ virtual network commandlets at our VNets. Now we are going to deploy the resources to a subnet within this virtual network. We're using add AZ virtual network subnet config to create a subnet configuration. Now, what we just did, we created a variables for the subnet, which contains the name of our subnet, our virtual network, the variables for our virtual network, also contains our address prefix for our subnet. Now we also created a variables for subnet config, which contains the commandlet add ASB virtual network subnet config at our subnet. Now we are going to associate our subnet configuration, which is our subnet config, to the virtual network by using the set ASB virtual network. So now we've created our virtual network variables already. Now pipeline using the set AZ virtual network, and we hit enter, which we create our virtual network, our first virtual network. Now we can see our virtual network is created successfully in our location East US. So we are going to repeat this process again to create our second virtual network, a new virtual network. Now we have successfully created the second virtual network, and our subnet, our second subnet associated with the virtual network. I'm going to my Azure portal to confirm the two virtual network I just deployed and the subnet. Now, this is my Azure portal, and this is my resource group. This is my resource group, VCLAG resource group I created using the PowerShell. And as you can see, the two resources, which is the virtual network, VLab virtual network, and VLab HQ virtual network I created just now. If I go into the first VNet and go to my subnet, you can see the subnet I created associated with the first VNet. If I go to the other virtual network and go to my subnet, you'll see the other subnet sitting inside the second VNet, the second virtual network. I'm going to deploy two Windows virtual machines in each virtual network using basic configurations. I will use a loop to save time for this. Now, this is my PowerShell. And what I just did is using the new AZVM commandlet to create a virtual network. I give the virtual network a resource group name and the name of my VM, give the VM a location, the image, the virtual network name, the subnet name, the NSG security group name, and the public IP. Then open the ports 80 and 3389, which is the port for the RDP. I'll hit enter. Now it's asking me to define the parameter for the username, which is, I'll hit enter, then I'll input my password. It's going to deploy the virtual machine. I will loop the video to save time. Now we have successfully created the first window virtual machines. We're going to repeat the same process to create our second virtual machine. We've successfully created the second VM virtual machines. Now let's go to our portal to confirm all resources have been deployed successfully. If we hit on refresh, we can see all resources associated with the VM and our virtual networks being deployed successfully. We created our NSG, created our public IP, we created virtual machines 1 and virtual machines 2, and the disks associated with those virtual machines. Now let's open our virtual machines 1 to ping the second virtual machine to see if they can able to communicate or talk to each other. Now I'll just open the both virtual machines. As you can see, both virtual machines are on my screen. I'll hit on IP config to see the private IP. Now I can see the both private IPs. Now I'm going to ping the other private IP to see if it can communicate 9.76. As you can see, it can be reached. The other virtual machines can be reached. If I do the same to the other virtual machine here and ping the other virtual machine, now you can see both virtual machines can speak to each other. At this point, we have two separate virtual networks, the virtual network 1 and the virtual network 2, each with their own virtual machines. Right now, they can't talk to each other because VNets in Azure are isolated by default. Now, what we're going to do now, we're going to create a virtual network pairing in Azure Portal so both network can talk to each other. Now, let's move to our Azure Portal. Now, this is my Azure Portal. If I go to my virtual network, this is the first virtual network I created. Under the virtual network, under the setting blade, I will see pairing. Hit on pairing and add a new pairing. Now I'm going to pair both virtual network together. Pairing nickname should be vclab vnet to vclab hq vnet. For the virtual network deployment model, I'll use the resource manager. And for the subscription, I selected my subscription. For the virtual network, I have to select the other virtual network I created, which is the vclab hq vnet. Now for the remote virtual network pairing settings, this was still at default, which is allow the second virtual network, which is vclab hq vnet, to access this virtual network here, vclab vnet. Then I can choose to select this one if I want the traffic to be forwarded. And for the local virtual network summary, I have to reverse the pairing nickname, which is vclab hq vnet. Then I can add. To enable communication, for example, if one VM needs to connect to a service running in another VNet, we need to create this VNet pairing connection. This creates a low latency, high bandwidth private link between the two networks. Now that we have set up the virtual network pairing, we want to make sure the virtual machines in different virtual networks can actually talk to each other. Now that we have created the virtual network pairing, now this is where Azure Network Watcher comes in. Azure Network Watcher is a built-in monitoring and diagnostics tools for Azure networking. One of its most useful features is the connection troubleshoot command, which let us test connectivities between resources like two VMs or a VM and a private IP directly from Azure. We search on the search bar, we search for virtual network watcher. Now, this is our network watcher on my Azure portal. I'll click on the network. Under my network diagnostics tools blade, I will see connection troubleshoot. I'll hit on the connection troubleshoot. Now on the source type, I'll select virtual machines. For the virtual machines, I have to select my virtual machines 1. This destination type should be selected. Select a virtual machine. Click select a virtual machines. Now for the virtual machines, under I will select my virtual machines 2. Preferred IP version should be both. Protocol should be TCP. Our destination should be our port for our RDP, which is 3389. Then I have to run diagnostics tests and wait for it to deploy. As you can see, is deployment in progress. This is especially helpful in scenario like ours, where we just created virtual network pairing and needs to verify if traffic can pass through, to check for route issues, firewall, NSG, rules, and more. Now we have to wait for it to load. Now, as you can see the results, the connectivity test is reachable. Outbound, everything is reachable, which shows that both virtual machines or both virtual networks can actually talk to each other and traffic can pass through. That's it. We have created a resource group, two virtual networks with subnet, deployed two virtual machines, and set up virtual network pairing between them or using PowerShell. If you found this useful, feel free to leave a comment or share. Thank you for watching.